Have you ever noticed something strange? The people who win the biggest battles rarely look like they're fighting, while everyone else is arguing, defending themselves, trying desperately to prove they're right. The smartest person in the room is usually saying almost nothing. And somehow, they leave with more respect, more influence, more control. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you challenge a manipulator directly, you often step into the exact game they wanted you to play. Today, we're going to explore what Machiavelli understood centuries ago. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't defeating your opponent. It's making them realize they never had power over you in the first place. But before we begin, I want you to write one simple affirmation in the comments. My silence is my strength. Not for the algorithm, for yourself. Because every time you choose strategy over emotion, you become harder to control. Now, let's begin. Most people believe manipulation begins with clever words or persuasive arguments. In reality, it begins with emotion. A manipulator isn't interested in discovering the truth or solving a disagreement. Their real objective is much simpler. They want your emotional reaction. The moment they provoke your anger, your frustration, or your need to defend yourself, they know they've gained an advantage. They don't need to win the argument if they can control the person making it. Machiavelli understood a timeless principle of human nature. Whoever influences your emotions can often influence your decisions. This is why emotionally disciplined people are so difficult to manipulate. They pause before speaking. They observe before reacting. They recognize that the first impulse is rarely the wisest response. Think about how experienced chess masters behave. When they lose an important piece, they don't slam the board or rush into reckless moves. They stay composed because they understand that panic creates more mistakes than the original setback ever could. Life works the same way. Every emotional outburst gives your opponent new information about your fears, your insecurities, and your limits. The calmer you remain, the less they can predict your next move. Manipulators rely on this predictable cycle. They criticize you, interrupt you, question your abilities, or make subtle insults, not because they care about being right, but because they want to pull you into an emotional battle. Once you're angry, you become easier to read. Once you're desperate to prove yourself, you begin making choices that serve their strategy instead of your own. Real strength is not found in having the loudest voice or the quickest comeback. It is found in mastering yourself. Silence is powerful because it denies manipulators the reward they were expecting. When they throw a spark and no fire appears, their confidence begins to fade. They expected resistance, but instead they meet composure. They expected chaos, but instead they find someone who refuses to be controlled. Your greatest advantage is not saying the perfect thing. It is refusing to let someone else decide how you feel. The less they can read your emotions, the less they can influence your actions. And in a world where so many people react without thinking, calmness becomes one of the rarest forms of power. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing they must immediately expose every lie, challenge every contradiction, or correct every deception the moment it appears. While this may feel satisfying in the heat of the moment, it often achieves very little. In fact, confronting a manipulative person too early usually gives them another opportunity to reshape the story, deny what they said, or portray themselves as the victim. Instead of revealing the truth, you may unintentionally help them hide it. Machiavelli understood that patience is often more powerful than confrontation. Human nature has a remarkable tendency to reveal itself over time. People who rely on dishonesty rarely succeed because they are exceptionally clever. They succeed because others become impatient. A person who constantly exaggerates, twists facts, or changes their story must remember every version they have created. Eventually, those versions begin to conflict with one another. This is why observation is such a valuable skill. Rather than interrupting every false statement, pay attention. Listen carefully. Remember what was said. Notice patterns instead of isolated incidents. Character is not revealed in a single conversation, but through repeated behavior. Someone may fool you once with confidence, but maintaining a false image day after day requires enormous effort. Sooner or later, the cracks begin to appear. People often expose themselves without realizing it. Their arrogance makes them overconfident. Their desire for attention encourages them to say too much. Their need to appear superior causes them to make promises they cannot keep. Every unnecessary word increases the chance of contradiction. Every attempt to impress others creates another opportunity for the truth to emerge. There is a quiet confidence in allowing time to become your ally. Instead of rushing to prove someone wrong, you simply let reality do the work. When others witness the inconsistencies for themselves, the lesson becomes far more convincing than any accusation you could have made. Truth has a unique advantage over deception. It does not need constant maintenance. Lies demand endless repairs, while truth remains steady. By choosing observation over impulsive confrontation, you protect your own peace while allowing others to reveal exactly who they are. In the end, people rarely destroy their own reputation through one dramatic mistake. More often, they do it through a long series of small choices that quietly uncover their true character. There is a quiet mistake that many ambitious people make without ever realizing it. The moment they form a new goal, they feel an irresistible urge to tell someone about it. They announce the business they want to start, the promotion they hope to earn, the project they're building, or the personal transformation they're pursuing. Sharing these plans feels exciting because it creates a sense of progress. But speaking about a goal is not the same as achieving it. And sometimes the attention you receive too early becomes the very thing that slows you down. Machiavelli understood that intentions revealed before the right moment often invite unnecessary resistance. Not everyone who listens to your dreams wants to see them become reality. Some people genuinely support your growth, but others respond with doubt, envy, or subtle discouragement. They may question your abilities, offer endless reasons why your plan won't work, or compare you to those who failed before you. Even when these comments seem harmless, they plant seeds of hesitation that can quietly weaken your confidence. There is another risk in revealing your plans too soon. The more people know about your direction, the easier it becomes for them to predict your moves, interfere with your progress, or compete for the same opportunities. Information has always been a form of power, and every unnecessary detail you reveal reduces your strategic advantage. Wise people understand that privacy is not secrecy born from fear. It is discipline born from purpose. Think of a fortress. Its strength does not come from announcing where every gate and weakness is located. It remains secure because access is controlled. Your goals deserve the same protection. They need time to grow without constant opinions, expectations, or distractions. A seed does not become stronger because everyone gathers to watch it. It grows because it is left undisturbed beneath the surface. Move quietly. Let your habits speak louder than your promises. Spend less time explaining what you intend to accomplish, and more time building the life you envision. When your results finally appear, they will require no introduction. Success has a way of silencing doubt more effectively than any argument ever could. The strongest plans are often the ones that remain invisible until they are too solid to be stopped. proving that patience and discretion can be just as powerful as ambition itself. One of the greatest illusions people fall into is believing they must respond to every challenge that comes their way. Every criticism feels like an attack that demands an answer. Every insult seems to require a sharper comeback. Every disagreement appears to be a battle that must be won. But this mindset quietly hands control of your time, attention, and emotions to whoever is provoking you. The moment someone else decides what deserves your energy, they have already gained influence over your life. Machiavelli recognized that power is not measured by how often you fight, but by how wisely you choose your battles. A leader who rushes into every conflict soon exhausts both resources and judgment. The same is true in everyday life. Not every accusation deserves your defense, and not every opinion deserves your concern. Some conflicts exist only because someone wants to pull you into an endless cycle of reaction. Refusing to participate is often the strongest move you can make. Imagine throwing a stone into muddy water. Instead of clearing the pond, you only stir up more dirt until nothing can be seen clearly. Arguments fueled by pride work in much the same way. The more both sides struggle to prove themselves right, the further they drift from understanding. What could have ended with silence becomes a long exchange of resentment, each response creating another reason to continue. Manipulative people understand this better than most. They know attention is valuable, and they know that anger keeps people engaged. They may provoke you with subtle insults, spread rumors, or make unfair accusations, hoping you'll react publicly. Once you do, the focus shifts away from their behavior and toward your response. Suddenly, you are defending yourself while they quietly watch the chaos unfold. There is a quiet confidence in walking away from battles that offer no meaningful reward. It is not surrender, nor is it weakness. It is the discipline to recognize that your peace of mind is worth more than your pride. Every unnecessary argument drains energy that could have been invested in your goals, your relationships, or your personal growth. The strongest people are not those who win every confrontation. They are the ones who understand that attention is a limited resource and spend it with intention. By choosing your battles carefully, you preserve your clarity, protect your focus, and deny others the satisfaction of controlling your emotions. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to enter a fight that was designed to make everyone lose. Predictability is comfortable, but it can also become a hidden weakness. When people always know how you will respond, what you will say, or what your next move will be, they begin to feel they understand you completely. Once someone believes they have you figured out, they can start anticipating your decisions and shaping their own behavior around your patterns. What feels like consistency to you may become an advantage for someone who wants to influence or outmaneuver you. Machiavelli understood that uncertainty has its own kind of power. He observed that people naturally try to predict the actions of others because certainty creates confidence. When that certainty disappears, they become more cautious. This does not mean becoming dishonest or playing unnecessary mind games. It means refusing to make yourself so transparent that every thought, emotion, and intention is visible to everyone around you. Many people reveal far more than they realize. They announce every plan before taking the first step. They post every emotion the moment they feel it. They explain every decision, defend every choice, and seek approval before acting. Over time, this creates a detailed map of their habits, fears, ambitions, and reactions. Anyone paying attention can begin to predict them with surprising accuracy. Quiet confidence works differently. It leaves space between intention and action. Instead of speaking about every goal, it focuses on achieving it. Instead of reacting immediately, it pauses long enough to choose the best response. Instead of chasing attention, It lets actions create curiosity. This measured approach makes your presence more difficult to define because people cannot rely on old assumptions to predict your future choices. Think about the individuals who naturally command respect. They rarely feel the need to explain themselves constantly. Their words are deliberate, their decisions are thoughtful, and their confidence comes from preparation rather than performance. They do not create mystery for the sake of appearing important. They simply understand that not every thought belongs in public, and not every move needs an audience. The less people know about your internal world, the less they can use that knowledge against you. They cannot manipulate emotions they cannot easily read, nor can they interfere with plans they never knew existed. By becoming more intentional with your words and more disciplined with what you reveal, you gain something far more valuable than attention. You gain the freedom to move on your own terms, guided by purpose instead of expectation. In a world where many people reveal everything, thoughtful restraint becomes a quiet form of strength that is difficult to challenge and even harder to control. Many people spend years chasing something they rarely question: the approval of others. They adjust their opinions to avoid criticism, hide their ambitions to fit in, and make decisions based on what will earn praise rather than what truly serves their future. At first, this seems harmless. After all, everyone wants to be accepted. But the moment your sense of worth depends on someone else's opinion, you hand them a level of influence they never earned. Approval can become an invisible chain, quietly guiding your choices without you even noticing. Machiavelli understood that dependence creates vulnerability. The more you need something from another person, whether it is validation, recognition, or acceptance, the easier it becomes for them to influence your behavior. Someone who fears rejection will often remain silent when they should speak, agree when they should disagree, or tolerate disrespect simply to avoid losing favor. This is how manipulation often begins, not through force, but through the fear of being disliked. True confidence is built differently. It grows from keeping promises to yourself, developing valuable skills, and creating a life that reflects your own principles rather than the expectations of others. Every time you accomplish something through discipline instead of applause, your confidence becomes less dependent on external approval. It begins to come from evidence rather than compliments. This doesn't mean ignoring advice or believing you're always right. Wisdom requires listening to others, but listening is very different from depending. You can appreciate encouragement without requiring it. You can accept criticism without allowing it to define your identity. The strongest people remain open to learning while refusing to let every opinion determine their direction. Imagine two trees standing in an open field. One has deep roots that reach far beneath the surface, while the other survives only because it leans against a nearby wall. When the storm arrives, the wall may collapse, leaving the second tree exposed. The deeply rooted tree bends with the wind, but remains standing because its strength comes from within. Human confidence works the same way. External approval is a fragile support, but character built through consistent action creates stability that lasts. When your peace, purpose, and self-respect no longer depend on constant validation, you become difficult to manipulate. Praise no longer controls you, and criticism no longer defines you. You make decisions based on values instead of fear, and your direction becomes steady regardless of who is watching. That quiet independence is one of the greatest forms of power a person can possess because it cannot be taken away by changing opinions or fleeting approval. There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide whether to spend their energy explaining themselves or improving themselves. Most people choose the first path. They argue with critics, defend every decision, and search endlessly for the perfect words that will make everyone understand them. Yet, no matter how convincing their explanations become, there will always be someone determined not to listen. The need to be understood can quietly become a distraction from the work that truly matters. Machiavelli recognized that reputation is shaped far more by results than by promises. Words can persuade for a moment, but consistent action creates evidence that is difficult to deny. This is why the most effective response to doubt is often not another argument, but steady progress. Every hour spent proving yourself to people who have already made up their minds is an hour that could have been invested in becoming the person you want to be. Think about the individuals you admire most. They are rarely remembered for the number of debates they won or the clever responses they gave to their critics. They are remembered because they built something meaningful, overcame obstacles, and allowed their achievements to speak long after the conversations had ended. Their success became the answer that no explanation could have matched. Manipulative people often expect you to become trapped in an endless cycle of reaction. They provoke you, hoping you'll waste your focus defending your reputation instead of strengthening it. Every emotional response gives them attention. Every argument keeps you standing still while they continue pulling you into their game. But when you quietly continue working towards your goals, you deny them the influence they were seeking. Progress becomes your refusal to participate. This approach requires patience because meaningful success is rarely immediate. There will be moments when you feel tempted to answer every accusation or prove every doubter wrong. Resist that temptation. Let your discipline become your reply. Let your consistency become your explanation. Every small improvement compounds over time until your life itself becomes the strongest evidence of your character. The most satisfying victories are often the quietest ones. They arrive without dramatic confrontations or public celebrations. One day, the same people who questioned your ability notice the results that speak for themselves. By then, you no longer feel the need to convince anyone. Your confidence comes from what you have built, not from what others think about it. In the end, success is powerful because it cannot be argued with. It transforms doubt into silence, proving that the strongest response is not always spoken. It is lived. If today's lesson changed the way you see power, write this final affirmation in the comments. I choose strategy over impulse. Because every time you practice patience instead of reaction, you become a little more free. And sometimes, the most powerful move you'll ever make is the one no one sees.